Hey, everybody, Alan Arnette here, and welcome to a very special edition of the podcast on alanarnette.com. It is Sunday, May 16th, and I have a couple of weather professionals with us because there's something brewing off the coast of India. Michael Fagin of Everest Weather and Chris Tomer of Tomer Weather Solutions. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Alan. Appreciate it.
Good to be here.
Lots to talk about.
Hey, thanks for taking a little bit of your Sunday afternoon to talk about this. So I guess we've got this big typhoon building off of the coast of India, and it's got a chance to come in. It's going to make a sharp turn, and then it gonna wiggle waggle, and who knows, it may hit the three big 8,000 meter mountains in Nepal: Dhaulagiri, I always get dinged for not saying it right. Dhaulagiri, Makalu, and of course Everest. Chris, you were telling me earlier that you think that Dhaulagiri might get some snow, but we'll get into that. So right now we've got people at Camp 2, 3, and maybe even the South Cold on their summit bids. We've got people leaving tomorrow, Monday. In fact, it's already Monday in Nepal. It's 1 o'clock in the morning over there, so they're probably up and eating breakfast, getting ready to head up. And it looks like if this thing does hit, it could go from maybe as early as the 18th all the way through the 21st. So, Chris, why don't you tee it up for us?
Well, I've been sort of looking at this for the last couple of days, and I thought this could be a real player. And so this morning, it kind of hit critical mass for me. I messaged Michael, and I said, what's your take on this thing? Because I just basically had communicated. I've got two teams on Everest and one on Makalu, and I said, I think we need to stand down from the 18th to the 21st, and we're going to have to wait for this cyclone to pass. And Michael, you replied, and you were on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, I've been monitoring too. I sent Alan a little message last week, seeing that it looks like there's going to be a cyclone brewing. So I've been following it. And then one of my clients was going to be going up. I think they're aiming for the 20th. And then he looked at my forecast with the potential snow and winds. And fortunately, they decided just to stay at base camp. So yeah, I think Chris and I have been on the exact same page with this, and those a lot of the internet-based models are completely missing this, which is pretty typical.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, and not to throw stones at anybody, because as I think Chris always summarizes when we discuss this, typically these things are a point in time, or they take a particularly known weather condition and then they extrapolate it based upon altitude and pressure and distance and winds. So, but they are computer models, and of course, both of you use computer models to to end up with your final forecast. But this is then where the judgment comes into play. Michael, when would you first start doing Everest weather forecast? What year?
2003.
Okay, so you're just a kid. You've been doing it for 17 years. And Chris, you've been doing weather for, I don't know how long. Let's see here. So you're 18 years old.
It was
so
informal for since 2003ish, but then more formally for about the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
So that's what makes this just really fascinating. And I think the risk is that, if you just look at certain pieces of information right now and you decide to go for the summit, this could be a real problem.
Yeah. Again, we were just reviewing some of these computer forecasts before we began this interview recording, and most of them they're not catching it on the 18th, 19th, and 20th. That the winds could be, I don't know. We'll get into this in a second, how high they could get. But Chris, talk to us a little bit about the snow on Dhaulagiri.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on ultimately the track of this thing, but it's going to lay down a swath of snow, and it'll basically run right perpendicular into the Himalaya. So, it's possible we could see very heavy accumulations in some of those peaks, like Dhaulagiri. Maybe it shifts around a little bit. And my curiosity was, okay, well, how much is going to make it to Everest, Makalu, where my people are? And I do think some is going to make it. And just looking at some of the latest numbers, latest information, I'm actually probably going to forecast more snow than what I was even this morning. And Michael was forecasting more than me. So that seems to be a real possibility now.
Is there a pointy part to the bell curve of when it hits Everest, Michael?
Well, you want me to show some of the graphs, some of the maps?
Yep. So we're going to use this advanced technology of sharing the screen to see if we can actually do it or not. Oh my gosh. So the first question is, Michael, how do you pronounce the name of this tropical cyclone?
I call it 1A.
Yeah, that'll work.
I didn't want to try to butcher it. I'm sorry about that.
All right, so let's look at the track. What does it look
So
like?
this is the track from the Cyclone Center. So May 17th, you see the arrow. It's going to be 100-mile-per-hour winds off the coast. Here's Everest. Now, a lot of the models are saying, well, gee, the cyclone's so far away from Everest, it's going to have little impact, but there's an awful lot of moisture in this. And where's the next one?
It always makes me feel good when people can't do their PowerPoint.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
What's the advance button?
No, I don't know what is going on here. Oh, there we
There
are.
we are.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, so there's
Oh.
Everest. Now this is,
Yeah.
if you could read the fine print, basically the purple colors are 50 millimeters of, if it was all rain. This is cumulative rain from May 18th to May 20th. And if it were all snow, Everest would get 20 inches
Oh,
or 50 centimeters. Now this is the Canadian model. One might say this has been the outlier in the sense that this is showing the most amount of snow, but it's been pretty consistent.
so this baby's going to hug the coast of India and then turn right.
Right now, if you look at the GFS model for the exact same period, it's showing significantly less snow. It's showing cumulative snow of 6 inches. So
GFS tends to be more accurate. It's the European model, right?
the GFS, it's the US government one. And
Oh, I'm sorry.
and the European model is similar to this. It's mainly the Canadian model and the US Navy model are showing the high snowfalls, but this is not unusual. As I'm sure Chris will testify. Anytime you have a big cyclone, the models are all over the place. The bottom line is, as Chris indicated, someone's going to get nailed.
I think the Euro will come on board. I think we're looking at snow on all those peaks, and the reason for that, Michael, you can attest to this, is that low-level jet and the subtropical jet. And I think that's going to be the main reason why people cannot summit is that subtropical jet stream. I think that's going to be the key player in all this. I actually had to go back and look at 1996 because there was some reanalysis done on this. And one of the key factors in that incident, May 9th through the 12th in 1996, was the low-level jet stream, the subtropical jet stream in that area, straight out of the Arabian Sea. And you can see this, Michael, on the 18th, there's a little clipper that comes through, and that dip, same kind of setup in 96. You had the clipper that comes through, and then the door opens with that subtropical jet, and all that moisture and all that wind at 18 to 20,000 feet just comes right in. GFS doesn't really pick up on this. So I think you got to watch this. I think the risk is there.
The risk is significant. And I've seen several cyclones like this where the models totally underestimated the snow, and there was like 20, 30 inches of snow, and other times it's done the opposite. So the bottom line, the potential is really there. There's an awful lot of moisture from the cyclone, and someone's going to get nailed. And then, probably staying at base camp might make the best decision at this point.
What's the similarities with 2019 with Cyclone Fagin that hit in early May? It also was similar that it kind of came up from the Bay of Bengal, and the big question was it going to veer to the right? It ended up kind of more staying to the left, and then the outer bands hit Everest on both sides, and they got smacked.
I think Fagin was more of a direct hit. It came right up from the Bay of Bengal pretty much directly. This is sort of going around them, if you will. That was the difference I saw.
I'm trying to remember that storm, and I think you're right. Obviously, the source region is different with these two, but it feels like this one has more moisture available with it. I could be totally wrong, but I think with the addition of this subtropical jet, which basically is going to come up to the right, and it's going to hit parallel perpendicular
Right.
to the Himalaya. And I think that's more of an issue than when Fanny came up, because that one was already further to the east.
Mhm.
And I don't think the subtropical jet was as big of a player as it's going to be here.
So do we have the cyclone and the jet interacting, or is the jet going to be further to the north at this point?
Well, and just my take on this is, I think people are really excited that the jet stream, the main
Yeah.
jet, is going to, well, it looks like it. If you look at a lot of the internet stuff, it looks like it's going to break loose, and it should be a great summit. But that's only half the story. If you have a more high-res model, you'll see that it pulls in some of this wind that's going to be coming off of the cyclone, and it actually entrains some of that wind, and it stays dirty on the summit 18, 19, 20, and 21. And I just, I don't know if the GFS has the capability, to be honest, to see this coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, the GFS seems to consistently miss the boat, especially with the winds.
So right now you communicate with your clients on Everest by text, email, carrier pigeon, a lot of different techniques, and so Chris, you used a phrase in the very beginning of this that climbers stand down. That's pretty strong.
Yeah, because everybody's so gung ho. I mean, it's just like, I know, like Michael said, people are already, or you said, they're already staged at 2 and 3 and maybe even higher. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I know that it's like, man, you can taste it, right? You can see that, wow, the jet is supposed to move away, the winds look light, but I think you just got to wait this one out.
Yeah, I mean, this is really the hard time when you get up there and you think you're ready to go. And I've seen this many times over the years. I've been following it. I've experienced it myself personally. That you get up here at Camp 2, and then all of a sudden, the forecast changes, and it's like, okay, come back down to base camp, and we got to wait down here for another 5, 6, 7 days, and that is part of the bargain when you go.
And there's no perfect solution to this. It's certainly possible that the storm goes a lot further west and completely misses Everest. That's certainly possible. I mean, one of the big peaks is going to get nailed real hard. That's a certainty. Where's the bullseye is the $1 million question. And I know the GFS seems to be thinking all the precipitation is going to go well to the west, and the Canadian model, which seems to be getting it, is showing all the major peaks getting it. So we will see, but it's, I don't necessarily tell my clients to stand down, although I could see one saying that for sure with this. I mean, I give them the facts, and, they can make the decision, but when they're seeing 20 inches of snow and winds at 50, 60 miles per hour, it's pretty obvious.
So,
what Michael, didn't you even notice that the winds, even on the GFS, are really not perfect on those days? I mean, really, ideally, you'd like it to be even lighter than what the GFS.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's right. Far from perfect.
Yeah, normally is under 30 miles an hour on the summit. I mean, you can tolerate higher winds, maybe up to Camp 3, and maybe even at the South Col, maybe 35, 40, and maybe 35 on the summit bid. But once you get over that, I don't care, what kind of down suit you're in, you're going to suffer.
A question for you, Alan. Today is, okay, so it's 16th. It's already the next day over there, right? I mean, it's the 17th. So, I mean, have you heard of anybody that is at Camp 4 and was like, we're going to rock and roll early?
I cannot confirm it, but I'm 90% sure that there are people at Camp 4 right now, because I think they were shooting for the 20th and the 21st. And I think they wanted to get a jump on so right now, I think there's about 300 people that are left, including Sherpas, that are left to go for the summit. 172 have already summited roughly. And so that leaves about 300. And that includes taking the Fruitenbach team out, and they just canceled their expedition due to COVID. And so a lot of people wanted to jump and get ahead of everybody else because they were all targeting the 20th and the 21st. So now, in fact, I just read an update from Summit Climb, and they had 2 scenarios. One was the 20th and the 21st, and the other one was the 25th. So now, this cyclone removes one of their options, and now they're down just to one option, according to their look. In fact, it's a good segue. I wanted to ask you both. So clearly, this is not the end of the 2021 spring season. Typically, the Nepal side runs until around June 1st, and that's when it becomes too warm and the ice fall melts out. And the ice fall doctor doesn't melt out; it just becomes more dangerous. And the ice fall doctors stop maintaining the ladders around June 1st. May 31st is traditionally when they just pull the plug. So that gives us about, if this thing goes through the 21st, that gives us another 8 or 9 days, 300 people. If the weather holds, they can do that.
Chris,
Michael?
you seen a decent window from May 24th and on?
Absolutely.
Yeah, me too.
I think if people can wait this out, I think they'll be rewarded. I think that like you and I had a brief conversation about that. I think that, yeah, if we can just get through this, I think we'll be all right.
All right. Sometimes retreat is the better part of valor. And I think that's what we're seeing right now.
Well,
and
it's just such an interesting situation, Alan. I mean, who would have thought some storm coming up way out in the Arabian Sea that is, I mean, you look at it and it's like, it's way out there, right? How can, like Michael said, it's going to take this turn. I mean, so you're telling me we're in position at Camp 2 and we can't summit on the 20th when we're looking at these forecasts and it's got no
But you know
jet
what?
stream?
But what happens if you're a client and you're at the high camp and the leader says come down, and then you come down on May 20th, and May 20th you don't get the snow, and it's a tough deal. But
This is risk.
yeah, it's a huge story. Alan, you were asking the difference between this and Fanny. This one's a lot bigger wind field, a lot bigger moisture field, and it's going to spend a lot of time in the ocean, so it's going to be gathering more moisture.
You see those temperatures in the ocean, Michael?
They're pretty toasty.
Yeah, it's like 90 degrees or something like that.
yeah, I was going to ask you if the warming oceans is a contributor to something like this event.
I'm sure it has to be. I mean, I have to think about how non-existent the jet was for the first 2 weeks and I think that was really interesting. And I always go back to that. I think, I don't know if I've ever seen the jet stream completely missing for the first, I don't know. There's something there, but
we knew it was going to come back.
yeah.
Yeah, I have never, in all the time I've been monitoring this, traditionally, I mean, this is over, generalizing, but you have decent weather in most of April. And then like the first 2 weeks in May, it just blows up and everybody's happy. They've got the ropes to the summit. They're acclimatized. You go back down to base camp or Parachet or Namche and you hang out, and then you come back for the second half of May. And that's why, if you look historically, and I just think this is fascinating. If you go back to, from 1953 to 2019, 80% of the summits are between roughly the 17th and like 90% of the summits, 90% of the summits are between like the 17th, 18th, and the 22nd. And then 80% are between the 19th and the 21st.
Oh, interesting.
So, I mean, it's just this really sharp bell curve. And right now we are taking out the prime days with this, with this unpronounceable typhoon.
1A.
Well, Alan, here's a historical question for you. I've read the book and obviously seen the movie and all that, but you've got much more of a background on this. Back in '96, I mean, this was before what Michael and I do now with precision weather type stuff. I mean, they just picked the date and went, right? I mean, they had no idea.
Well, it was driven by a number of things, not the least of which wasn't the Lama declaring an auspicious day, based upon the Buddhist calendar, and also, the phase of the moon. So there were a lot of, factors that were used back then. And also, Rob Hall is famous for saying, that date is a lucky day for me, because he has summited on that day like the previous 4 or 5 years. So they had a little bit of a body of knowledge and experience. But then, their base camp team received the forecast saying that there was a typhoon in the Bay of Bengal and it was moving north. And I guess, you can argue that they just decided to, take their chances. And we may see the same phenomenon this time. I mean, summit fever is real. And to your point, people want to get out of base camp this year. I mean, they do not want to stay there any longer than they have to. So we may see other expeditions follow Lucas Frutenbach's, lead here and say, we can't spend another week at base camp and risk having more people get infected with COVID. We don't know if these weather forecasts, there's always this cone of uncertainty that we've all been educated on with, hurricanes that hit the US. And so maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. We're not going to take the chance. It's going to be an interesting 10 days.
Yes, it will.
I don't think
Hey,
there's any question.
thank you so much, gentlemen. Appreciate your expertise and your generosity and sharing your knowledge with us. And let's just hope that all the climbers stay safe and they can get back home.
Yes, stay safe, and nice chatting with the Rocky Mountain duo.
Real pleasure. Good to see you, Michael and Alan.
Same here, Chris and Alan.
Thanks, guys.